Hello, everyone. We are already having so much fun. We haven't even gone live yet. And welcome to the weekly show of What is School For? On this show, I interview leading educators, professionals, parents, homeschoolers, traditional students, non-traditional students. Hold on, I'm having a hard time going live on LinkedIn. I have to fix this. Just give me 1 second.
Do you?
I want to make sure that we are actually, yes, we are live on LinkedIn. So troubleshoot on the spot, proud of myself. So on this show, I interview educators and professionals, entrepreneurs, business people, parents, students, homeschoolers, and the traditional students to come here to discuss, debate, and disrupt education. Ooh. The goal is to future-proof the next generation. And today we are talking about something very interesting and playful. I love it. I love today's topic. As you can see, I didn't even erase the drawing from my children to add more color, playfulness to today's topic. We are talking about play and how we can unleash our inner power through play. I just love that. Really powerful statement. And join me live is the one and only Jeff Harry. Jeff and I, we connected in person last year at Inbound. Amazing speaker, amazing energy. I was just telling Jeff, I felt like tired, but like you give me so much energy. And Jeff is the founder of Rediscover Your Play and international keynote speaker. Is a really fun speaker and really entertaining at the same time educational. So Jeff does training for students and for children and for professionals to teach them and how to be more playful and how to leverage playing to become more creative, imaginative, and to become more awesome as a human being. So really honored to have you on the show, my dear friend. And we are live on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Periscope, on YouTube. And let me know in the comment section where you are joining us live from, social media wise and geographically speaking. Jeff?
Let's go. This is awesome. Wow, you're on 4 lives at the same time. You go.
We're actually on 5. We're on 5. One is my Facebook personal page, one is my business page. So that's how we do it here. Yeah, really excited to see.
Let's dive in.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us live. So share with us what inspires you to devote your professional career to play and to study play and to teach others how to be more playful and how to play. What is your why?
My why is, if you think of when you have felt the most alive, the most present, the most joyful, and have probably the most memorable memories, it's when you were playing. Mm-hmm. That was the moment. So why wouldn't you be striving every single day to be in those fully present, memorable, powerful play moments? You know, I also believe part of my why is that I believe everyone already has all the answers that they need. They don't need them from other people. They simply need to tap back into their inner child to figure them out. And they just need to be able to play with their inner child enough to connect to it. And a lot of people I also refer to this as flow. A lot of people don't like to use the word play in the corporate world, but then it's also referred to as flow. And it's when you're in this space where your prefrontal cortex is opening up new synapses, and because of that, it's opening up so many more lanes and opportunities for you to actually figure things out.
I love it. Yeah. And we're just talking about you, Kathy.
What's up, Kathy? Yeah, it opens up so many more lanes and opportunities. And if you think about when you are depressed or when you are disappointed, such as in this pandemic, it's because you're so focused on a certain result. You expected 2020 to be a certain year. It was supposed to be your year, and you were going to do all these talks, and you were going to travel all over. And then all of that went away. And now, like, you're like, in this uncertain time, and you actually have to play through this and own the uncertainty and ride the emotional roller coaster. And to do that, you have to have a play-oriented, growth-oriented mindset. So that's why play is my why.
That's why I love you so much. I love everything you mentioned. I want to definitely unpack because there are so many good points that you mentioned. But before I ask my next question, I want to ask you, Jeff, and also I want to ask everyone in the live audience, who is the most playful person that you know in your life, maybe personal life and professional life? You know, people who are just like, you know, in the flow all the time and just like everything you mentioned. What's your answer? Everyone let me know in the comment section.
There are two people that I think of. One is in a professional setting. There's a phenomenal speaker named Kevin Carroll. I just find him just like a mentor, even though he doesn't really know me, but I just love him. I just fall in love with his work. And he wrote the book, The Red Ball, Red Rubber Ball, and it was all about play. He actually was the creative catalyst for Nike.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and a perfect example of his type of play was this red ball that he always played with, basically brought the community together. In many ways, he described the red ball as like saving his life. This like bouncy ball, like could that possibly, but it changed his entire life because it introduced him to sports. It brought him open to all these new opportunities. And eventually he became an assistant coach for, I think, the 76ers. And while he was there, because he was open to play in so many ways, when he was in the military, he had actually learned how to speak the Yugoslavian language. I'm not sure what that one's called, but he learned that. And then during a game where he was playing against Vlade Divac, who I think was the Sacramento Kings, this Yugoslavian, as the assistant manager, someone told him, it was just like, talk some trash to Vlade. You got to talk trash to Vlade. And he started talking to him in this Yugoslavian accent, really affected Vlade, and Vlade wasn't able to make any points in the second half. And then Vlade chases this guy down afterwards. This black dude chases him down and says, hey, you should be the translator for our Olympic team. So then he goes to the Olympics representing Yugoslav, or not more like just part of the Yugoslavian team. So just this idea of he just followed his play, and his play opened up so many doors. And then the other person I think of that is playful is my best friend's Dana's mom is in her 90s, and she is so fully present and joyful. And like, you know, you put away your phone when you're around her because she's just having such an amazing life. She just loves everything. And it's like, that is my hero. That is how I want to live in the world, to be fully present with the people that are right in front of me at that very moment, and just really make that my main moment in time. Right.
Well, I love the answers you give us, like the older lady. I love, you know, being surrounded by people like that. And also the book, I'm going to share the link to the book in the comment section. I'm interested in checking out the book myself. Yeah, I love that. So I asked that question. Actually, my son, my 8 years old, is in the live audience, and his answer is children and kids. And like that's kind of also my initial answer, because I'm a mom. I work with children all the time. The younger they are, the more playful they are.
Oh, absolutely.
And they are so imaginative. They are so playful. But very interestingly, because I mainly work with children kind of in higher education, like 20, 18 years old. But by the time they become older, somehow they lose that. Ooh. And in fact, research has shown that as people grow older, imagination, playfulness, creativity actually decreases.
Are you talking about that NASA study? You talking about that NASA study? Is that the one you're referring to? I know what you're talking about.
I know, of course, you are an expert on this. So I want you to explain this. What happened between like a baby stage, you know, being imaginative, curious, to like kind of our state, right? Like what happened in between? How can we reverse that by more intentionally, activate our playfulness and learn how to play?
I think, I reference Ken Robinson's Schools Kill Creativity. I think too much structure in schools to manage discipline destroyed a ton of the creativity and what makes people who they are. In order to teach the larger classroom. I mean, both my sisters are teachers, so I'm not knocking the teacher profession. I know how difficult it could be because I see them, constantly grading papers, saving up money so that they can buy all the materials. Like, I've seen it. I've seen their stress levels, but their ability to like celebrate each individual, they just don't have time. They don't have time in the current setup with so much testing and so much focused on like them being accountable to reach certain goals that really many times don't even show whether that proves that a kid will be successful in life or not. It can be destructive. And then on top of that, you have a society that is constantly telling kids to grow up quicker, right? That it's childish. You don't want to be a certain way. There's a moment in time when all of us went to the playground for the last time. And we don't even remember that moment when we were like, we didn't even realize we were making that decision. But then at some point we were like, well, that's just too childish, or I'm not that person anymore. I'm older, and it was just like, why are you giving up that part? That's the best part. That's the part where the answers are. And while we're trying to get validation, from others, I think that happens a lot when they're like in their tweens and all the way up. Is there's a point where you start needing acceptance from others. You want to belong, and that belonging is so rooted, in our psyche of like we have to belong. From eons ago, that we're willing to compromise who we are, and then we lose sight of what we love, and then we forget about it, sometimes forever, or at least for a few decades, until someone's like, when was the last time you played, Or
until like mid-age crisis. In my case, like mid-age, like everything hit me in my like mid-30s. Yeah.
Right, exactly, right. And then you're wondering like, what happened to not even happiness, but fulfillment? How I've done all the things that schooling and society told me would bring me happiness. I made money, I got promoted, I did all these things, and I'm now here, and none of this is true. And you get so frustrated at that point because you're like, they lied to me. I could have been playing the whole time. And what I did was I tried to be cool when I was 12, 13, 14, way too difficult, put so much mousse in my hair, tried to make bangs. I mean, I tried it all, wore Cavariccis, put on Dracar Noir, didn't really help me. And I was like, this was me I felt like I was pretending and dressing up and pretending in a way that I didn't even want to. And then I was like, this sucks. I'm just going to do me. I'm just going to be my nerdy self. And then I just continued to do that. And I challenge that now, even as people go to work now, before the pandemic. I feel like a lot of people dress up and they pretend like they're somebody else, and they are playing, but they're playing a role they don't want to play.
Amen.
They have no desire to play. And it's like, why don't you do what you want, dude? Do what you want. Do what makes you come alive. Why is that so difficult? This is the time to play.
I love this. I love this. And in a few minutes, we're going to dive into some specific actions that we can take. But everything you mentioned and remind me of quite a few conversations that I had with thought leaders like you. So recently I had a conversation with a guy. He is a senior advisor at McKinsey. And but like he told me something really funny because he dressed very like a free person, jeans, like t-shirt. And people say that you don't look like a senior consultant at McKinsey. And he said, that's why I am here to kind of disrupt, introduce a new way of thinking. I love that. And also how you mentioned like playing, reminding me of my conversation with Duncan Wardle. He's the former VP of innovation at Disney. And he asked people this question: where were you when you gained your most creative idea? And so he asked like thousands of people. I want to ask you now, Jeff, where were you the last time when you gained your most innovative, most amazing, creative, innovative idea, brilliant idea? And I want to ask our live audience the same question. Where were you when you gained that most creative, brilliant idea? So share with us. What's your answer, Jeff?
I was at a conference that's actually happening online this weekend called the World Domination Conference. And it basically what they celebrate is adventure, community, and curiosity. And it was started by a bunch of digital nomads, people that were challenging the idea of, do I need to be in the office to work? Can I work on a beach in Thailand? And then they were like, well, we should all get everybody together, all the people we know, and run this. And they've been running it for a decade now. Wow. And I was surrounded by all these people that were challenging the status quo, that were like, the 9 to 5 is BS. The way in which I've been working is not the way I want to work anymore. I met families that were traveling the world while working and raising their kids in a homeschool environment. You were like, oh, how is that even possible? I met people that had left their corporate jobs with no clue of what they were going to do next. Yeah, there you go. What they were going to do next. But they were willing to take the leap. And then a year later, they had created stuff they never thought possible. I was just surrounded by all these playful people. And that's when I got the idea to be like, I need to create my own organization, Rediscover Your Play, to help people rediscover what it is that makes them come alive. And also what makes organizations come alive. Because tying back into what you said earlier with the whole like term disruptor, we have to disrupt. What are we talking about when we're using that terminology? Because basically what we're saying is, the reason why we're saying disrupt is because the stuff we've been doing doesn't work. And if you think about how many organizations started, many companies started, they started with this crazy idea and then this boldness to be willing to take the risk to figure it out. And then they forgot that. Like 5-10 years in, they went public, or they got funding, or they, got their like third round of seed money, and they forgot the whole playful part of why they started this business in the first place. And then everyone started to pretend as if they were professional. And that's why all of the energy and the creativity and the innovation and all of that is being sucked out, because you're not providing a safe space for people to really take risks like you did at the beginning. And that is what I do when I work with organizations, is I'm like, what happened to that? Bring that back. You know how to do this. You knew how to do this as a kid, and you knew how to do this when you started your organization. So go back to that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And also I'm reading some answers. So my own son said that he gained his most creative idea when he was taking a shower in the bath.
Oh yeah, those shower.
And some people
said those as shower ideas. Those are those
shower effect, right? So and then some people mentioned like 2 a.m., late evening. Interesting. Nobody mentioned at work, right? So that's also what Duncan Wardle mentioned. He asked thousands of people, and nobody ever mentioned at work. So I want to share that to back up what you are saying here, right? Being outside of our familiar environment, right? That's like for me when I'm actually taking a walk where I'm playing with my own children or playing with Legos. I love you, Bowtie. And that's when I gained my most creative ideas. So I really, really love that. Thanks for sharing. And I'm going to check out that conference.
Also, what's fascinating is that whole idea of waking up at 2, 3 a.m. There are some studies that say there's something magical that is happening then. And if you wake up and you have an idea, write it down. It's crucial that you write it down because for some reason, you're being woken up to jot this idea down. And they talked about, I guess in like the Roman era, that was actually the sleep pattern of a lot of people. They would go to sleep at 10, wake up at 2 to 3, like pontificate, create, and then go back to bed. And
yeah, totally. I read similar story. Like, who is this amazing artist? I put a pencil between his legs, and when the pencil actually dropped, and then he will wake up. That's when like 2 or 3 a.m. and has the most creative idea, and then start writing or drawing. Very interesting. Yeah, and I love this comment from Lucy Lenny joining us live from Brazil. Thank you so much. And asking her children to wear masks and then they lose their identity. I love this idea. I'm going to implement this. I know you love this too.
Exactly what I'm saying. Let's go, Brazil. I was in Brazil for the World Cup. It was amazing. You know why I love Brazil so much? So many playful people. In America, we're so serious. We're always trying to be like, we're number one, we're great. And the rest of the countries are like, yeah, we don't really care. But in Brazil, people are so playful and present. And that is one of my favorite places to go, And I realized I had one of my biggest epiphanies in life in Brazil at Iguaçu Falls. It's like one of the largest waterfalls in the world. It connects 3 countries, I believe. And,
oh my God,
I was by this waterfall and I was standing there next to it. And I was like, this waterfall's been here for tens of thousands of years. It's been here forever. I'm going to be around for maybe 80 to 100 years if I'm lucky, right? Maybe a little bit longer if I'm really lucky. And if in these short period of time that I'm here, I might as well live my life as bold as possible and take as many risks as possible. And that's when I think I decided like, all right, now I need to start taking bigger risks in my life. And that's when I started, trying things out, at my former organization and doing things we'd never done before and just saying yes to whatever opportunities came, even though I had no clue how to do them. And that ride is so much more of a fun ride than the one where you know exactly what's happening next and you don't want to take it.
Amen, my friend. Exactly. That's why I resigned from my associate professor position and decided to build my own school. Because when I was teaching, I felt like I could almost predict my life.
Yes.
In the next 5 years, my life is so predictable. It was not exciting, but now my life every day is so unpredictable.
So exciting.
And I love it, right? Recently, I watched this interview that Seth Godin did with Inc. magazine. And in the interview, he mentioned that people love surfing because every wave is different. And I love that analogy, right? That's kind of where we are now because every wave is different. And then, yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, here's the other thing that's so liberating about this. My amazing friend Laura Pena, amazing graphic artist, was working for like major companies and getting a lot of great work. But she predicted what her life was going to look like. And then she left her husband. She went to Thailand. She explored, she played, and then she eventually came up with this idea. I believe she came up with this idea also at the World Domination Conference, where she was just like, I want to empower young women in leadership roles. I want to do 122 interviews in 30 countries around the world, and I'm going to do it over the next few years. And she just came up with this idea, no idea how to fund it, no idea how she was going to do it, no idea where she was going to, how even to start. And she made this organization called She Is the Universe, And from that, she started creating all of these amazing videos and highlighting all of these amazing young women around the world. And now she has a mentoring program for hundreds of girls around the world, as well as has like these amazing videos that they can use as they grow in their life. And the reason why I tell that story is because she was willing to take her risk and jump into her truth and be her full self. It gives permission for all these other people to do the same, which is the whole point, right? Mm-hmm. Because as you come alive, you give permission for everyone else to also come alive. And that is so important. That is the other part that's so important, is that if you are willing to take a risk, you then are opening doors up, not just for yourself, but everyone that you interact with going forward.
Amen. I love that. Like even I love the story. I would love to get connected to this woman and have her on the show. Even for me, launching this show, that's something I coach my own students to do. Like when you put yourself out there and to share your story and to share some really good content, you give other people the permission to do something similar or maybe even better. Incredible. I love that. And so I want to really share this comment from Ashley, who is a high school student. Thank you for joining us live in California. And I really love this, like now as we're talking about, new way of thinking and living and designing our life. So when you look at the traditional school curriculum, they teach us like everything is so standardized. And so I wonder if you have some tips for students who are still in the very traditional system, like, what do they talk about? GPA, like, grades. And actually, in fact, research has shown that GPA is actually universally related to innovation. Higher GPA, lower innovation. Exactly. I see that in my classes all the time. But for those people who are still in the system, do you have some like tips or ideas to share with the students? And I know that you also work with children, like to help them to learn how to play and to be more creative, more imaginative, and to be outside of their comfort zone a little bit more. Yeah.
So my first suggestion is, Ashley, don't grow up. Don't grow up. I challenge this all the time.
You just love Jeff's energy, everyone. I just love it.
Like adults are telling you this story of what you're supposed to do, and it's a lie. I'm just telling you that right there. It is. They're like, well, if you grow up and then you get this job and then you do this, then you'll be happy. And it's not true. It's just not true. And Sean Achor, who a Harvard researcher, wrote the book Around the Science of Happiness, talks about your GPA in college determines your success as much as rolling dice. And so there are all these metrics that we, especially in America, focus on that later on don't even matter. And what my suggestion to her is to listen to that inner voice, to almost, and this is a challenge for a lot of high school kids, is to get bored, to put away the phone for just a moment and then listen to that inner voice, to listen to what is it telling you to create? What is it telling you to make? Like, you want to make TikToks? Go do that. If you want to make some videos, do that. You want to write? Go write. Whatever you want to do, create something that is you, because what you're doing every time you're creating is you're helping to find your voice. And I was on a podcast yesterday and they asked me, what is my biggest accomplishment? And I first started listing all these accomplishments that I had. And then I was like, well, let me check my ego because those actually don't feel right. You know what my biggest accomplishment is? Finding my voice. Not losing my voice, not losing the playful self. So every time you create, Ashley, you are not only putting it to the man, challenging the system, but you are also figuring out, like, what does it sound like? And it's not going to be this loud voice. It's going to be this small curiosity that's in the back of your head. It's like, I wonder what it would be like if I did that. Explore that. And if it's fun, keep doing it. And if it's not fun, stop. And just keep following your curiosity. Not even your passion, because sometimes people don't even know their passion. Just follow that curiosity and see where it takes you. And it's going to bring you in a much happier place than following all the shoulds. because we need to stop shoulding on ourselves. And grown-ups should all the time. And you know why they should? Because they got should on, and they're passing that trauma to you. You don't have to take on that trauma, and you don't have to pass it to the next generation.
Oh, I love that. I love that. You know, like I think I feel like our children need to hear messages like this at a very young age, because I noticed, at least among my students in the United States, undergraduate students, over the last several years, mental health, depression has become so bad. Like when I started teaching 2 decades ago, and it was not that bad. And but now, especially the last several years, you know, very serious like mental health related issues have become really bad. And then that's in kind of education. But in the corporation environment, similarly, right? I had a conversation with some of my friends yesterday. She's in New York City, and she said that she used to work for a big corporate in New York. And so one day she got yelled at by her boss, and her friends are giving her like pills. Hey, take this. It turns out every single kid, like 20 in their 20s, were taking something to just survive the day to day. I was really shocked and feeling very sad when I hear that, just thinking about the overall state. Yeah. So
can I comment on that?
Please.
Is I love this quote: expectation is the thief of joy, right? And you can also replace expectation with comparison as the thief of joy. And with this new, you know, with social media being so rampant, you know, I've even heard that in certain third world countries, happiness levels were at a certain height. They were doing really well. And then the more they downloaded Instagram, the happiness levels went down, because it's a comparison world all the time. And this is why it's so important to really tap into your inner child, into your inner voice, is because those comparisons are always going to be happening. And you just have to challenge yourself. Is that really important? Do I really care? Like, especially in high school, do I really care that this person's cooler than I? I don't even know what that means to be cooler than the other person. And then when we get to the working world, do I really care that this person is making more money than me? Oh, this person got Forbes 40 under 40. I didn't get that. Am I not a good person because I didn't get that? So it's this constant comparison, which is something that, you know, we've had for eons. So it's really hard for us to let go of it. But the more you're rooted in yourself, the more you're able to call out the BS on that and be like, I don't really care about those stories. Those people don't matter to me. I challenge people all the time to do this. If someone is upsetting you, or some situation is upsetting you, ask yourself, will you care in a year? Especially if you're in high school. Will you even care? You're a senior, you're stressed out, you know, or going into senior year. Will you care in a year? No, because you'll be in college and you won't even think about them. Same thing when you're in college and when you're in the working world. It's just like, do you want to spend your time thinking about this? And then talking about the positive psychology of this is most emotions you only have for 6 to 9 seconds. That's all you have. They only last 6 to 9 seconds. But what we do is we take that emotion and rerun it 1,000 times in our head over and over and over again. And then someone asks you, oh, did you have a bad day? And you're like, yes, I had a horrible day. And it's like, no, you didn't have a horrible day. You had a horrible 1,000 moments of time because you chose to continue to think about that bad thought and let it go. But when you are taking action and you are creating, action is the antidote to despair. It removes you from that depressed state, because now you're creating something. And even if you're creating something from pain and from depression, again, you're giving permission to others to be like, hey, I'm struggling. And then other people are like, so am I. Because everyone wants to be like, I want to talk about, you know, the stuff that I feel really like hurt about or vulnerable, but I think I'm alone. And when you speak up, it gives all these other people permission to also speak up.
Oh my God, I love this so much, every single point. So recently I give a training on emotional intelligence. And even like emotional intelligence, the very first step, different boxes is like recognize your own emotion. And I didn't know that our emotion lasts so short, right? So if you can recognize that, be aware of that, that's the first step. And then stop for a second and then learn to regulate. So I love how you mentioned, like, how are you going to think about this a few years later. So I actually recently discovered this rule, which is 10, 10, 10. It turns out like Warren Buffett actually uses this. I don't know if you know this, Jeff. So what this is that when something happens, you feel like your button is being pushed and triggered. So ask yourself, however you want to react, how you are going to feel about that in 10 minutes, and then 10 months, and then 10 years later. I was like, wow, that is so powerful, right? It kind of stops you from taking impulsive actions or reactions.
Yeah, even the Native Americans do, or certain Native American tribes even do it even in a more powerful way. When they make a decision as a tribe, they try to think about what their ancestors 10,000 years ago would have done, and then they think about what their future ancestors or future people 10,000 in the future would make a decision, and they try to think of from those two perspectives so that you're not thinking from such a small perspective. Because I think a lot of times we think about what's going to happen the next moment. I have to have self-gratification right now. And when you're able to let that go and be like, does this really matter in a year? Then you're really able to identify what is actually important in your life.
Yeah. Oh my God. I love this conversation. Has been amazing. I'm trying to catch up with everyone's comments, which has been really, really challenging here. So it's from my friend Alice. She's an amazing educator herself. She said, yeah, daily school doesn't really allow you to be in the flow. Like that stupid bell, right? Like so loud. Imagine you are in your creative zone. Like I feel like it's very hard to put a time on creativity or whatever you are doing. Hey, only this 1 hour you can work on this. When time is up, change to another room, learn something else. Like nobody learns or functions like that. I think that is something needs to be like reformed.
Well, that's the crazy. This is what I love about why you created your own school is we have not changed the schedule of our school system since the 1950s, dude. Like, come on, we are on military time, and then you're like imagine, like, this is why I love some homeschool educators, because I'll see them and they'll be like, yeah, my kid is interested in a certain type of Egyptian history today, so we're gonna go to the museum right now and go explore that. That's awesome. Like, and then they may just focus on that. I met a kid that was 7 that had already wrote 2 books, and because he was a homeschool kid and he was just had the freedom to do it. When I would run our STEM education programs using Lego back in the day, I ran a homeschool class for a bunch of kids, and I remember I had basically taught them everything I could think of. So I got to this point where I was like, look, I don't know what to teach you. So today we're going to choose to do an impossible project. I have no idea how to figure this project out. I've been trying to figure this out for years. Can we all figure it out in the next hour? Let's just do it. And they were able to figure it out in a playful setting. So it's like there's just so many opportunities to teach history, math, science in such a creative way. My former colleague, Ben Pfister, I love this man, taught his homeschool students the story of the Trail of Tears, where 4,000, Native Americans died walking, and he did it by having his students build individually 4,000 many people and just place them quietly for a whole hour. And some of them now, I think they're like 18, were like, that was one of the most impactful lessons of my life. So when we're able to step out of the traditional curriculum, my sisters always say, I'm only able to be creative in the last month of the year after testing is done. You know, we're after every, so it's like, wait a minute, 8 months out of the year, you don't get to be creative. And then all of a sudden now you got to be creative in this last month. You know, that it just robs teachers.
Oh my God.
It robs teachers of being who they are. And then it also robs kids of being able to be who they are.
I mean, I have so much to say about this, you know, teaching in the classroom for so many years. I so agree. And even when you think about the traditional structure, you know, earlier we were talking about asking for permission. I feel like with our like traditional way of teaching, like children, they developed this habit. They need to ask for permission to do anything in life, even like, you know, using the bathroom. So when you think about it, as I grow older, I feel like I was doing the same when I needed to launch a live streaming show. You know, Gary Vee, he talks about this. I give you the permission to go ahead. We feel like we always need to find another person to give us that permission to do something, whereas we should be the person to give ourselves that permission to do it. So I feel like everything is kind of coming together.
It's so true, because then you've been in, you know, as Jane Elliott says, she doesn't consider the educational system in America education. She considers it indoctrination. You know, that's all it is. That's a majority of it. And that's not on the fault of the teachers. That's not on the fault of maybe even the principals. That is on the fault of just the system and how it's set up and how it's done in such a way. I mean, I hate to say this, but what is it? Thomas Jefferson, I forgot what the exact quote was, but basically the quote was, the educational system is designed to separate the wheat from the chaff, which means our job is to create an educational system where the smartest people bubble up to the top, and we take those people, and those are our thought leaders. Those are the people. And then everyone else does menial labor. So frankly, the education system isn't broken. It's working perfectly. It's working exactly how it's supposed to.
Yeah, like this, it's hard to control. Yeah, exactly.
To control people and just to indoctrinate them and tell them that this is how you're supposed to do stuff. So if we really want to challenge the system, we have to create a whole brand new system. Exactly.
One of my favorite quotes is, the master's tools cannot dismantle the master's house. So if you want to do something, that's why I resigned, trying to build something new. And I love that. And we can see some like comments from our students and, you know, it makes me remind me of my old days, you know, like school is really about like, you know, not so much about learning. And that's why students are so stressed, you know, passing grade, but that's not learning. I have so many quotes, you know.
That's not learning.
Mark Twain, he said that don't let schooling interfere with education.
Exactly.
Education is important, but there's a big difference between schooling and education. I love this comment from Ashley, you know, like many educators or school system. I agree. I think it's not teachers' fault, because that's how I learned to teach, which is to give out, you know, A, B, C, D, E, and F. And we label our children so much. Yeah, so I hear, but thank God you are here, Ashley. I hope this conversation is changing how you are thinking about school. And there are multiple paths to success. In fact, some of the people I know, they are very non-traditional students. They are more innovative, more creative, more successful, I feel like.
Yeah. I'll share these two things. One is so I make a lot of videos, a lot of ridiculous videos, and I post them on TikTok, for example. And I saw this one TikTok from a high school kid that was like, why am I learning more about Black history from TikTokers doing 1-minute TikToks that I learned in my entire schooling history? He was like, this makes absolutely no sense that I'm learning more from 1 minute that I've learned sitting in a classroom for an entire year. And, you know, so that's what I do. I challenge people. And then the other myth that I feel like we need to dispel is this idea of all of these heroes, all these Elon Musks and Steve Jobs and these people that are claimed that are like, this is the way, or this is how you did it because this is how I did it. None of those people knew what they were doing. None of them. They were all making it up as they went along. And then when they got to the end, then they started telling this rewritten story of how they had known their whole life they were going to be a certain way, when it's not true. Like the same way you felt in high school where you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm just making it up as I go along. We as adults still feel that right now. We just don't want to tell you that because we want to pretend like we know better, but we may not. You know, we have experiences that help us along the way, so we've made less mistakes, or you know, we've made more mistakes, so we're not going to make those same mistakes twice. Hopefully, sometimes we do, but there is a reality that we're all making this up as we go along, and we need to embrace that, and we need to preach and share that more instead of telling the story that we're perfect and you need to be perfect as well, because perfection is BS.
I love it. Mic drops. I love it. And so, you know, you were talking about TikTok. So Ashley is just resonating with you. Yeah, the same. I go to YouTube University and I love funding my creative ideas. So that's something, you know, we're talking about social media. Something that I coach my own student is stop using social media only as a way to passively consume, but actually using social media as a means to a greater end, to create educational content like videos to inspire, to start a social movement. That's how you should use social media. But again, they don't talk about that. Just last week on the show, there's one high school teacher. He said that in many K-12, at least in the United States, they ban social media.
And I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because, you know, I've seen the negatives of social media and how it really does take away someone's ability to be present. Also, it takes away one of the most playful things that you need in order to be creative and innovative, and that's frankly being bored. Because like now, kids as well as adults don't allow ourselves to be bored. I could watch Netflix for the next 300 years and I would still be watching Netflix because that's how much content is out there. Or I have another option where I can create something new and leave an impact on this world. What do you want to do, right? But I agree, if you use social media in a certain way, if you create on social media, my trick that helps me is I create and then I get off. I don't
the same here.
And I don't look at the comments. I just don't look at the comments because it's like, it's not really helpful. I made this TikTok the other day that went really well, and now people are arguing on my thread, but it has nothing to do with me. Like our art, you know, our creations, once we put them out in the world, they're not ours anymore. Almost like monks that put out their sand, you know, their sand designs. It's like you just let it blow away because it's not about you. You know,
exactly.
I feel like we need to embrace more and more. It's just like create, recognize this is not about you. This is about something.
Totally. It's a conversation starter, right? You provide an avenue for people to talk about this. You build a community. So totally. And I'm not addicted. Like I just like cooking, right? I use my knife, I chop some veggies, and once I finish, I put it away, I move on. So I use social media the same way as a tool. It's like money is one of the many tools in my box for me to do something, you know, like for example, launching this show, we're having this incredible conversation. I'm just so happy to see that we have few high schoolers here and they feel like their lives are being changed. So that makes me feel so happy. Yeah.
Oh, the other part that I love is Elizabeth Gilbert says this all the time, that it might be Irish lore, but she would talk about how genius visits you. No one's a genius, but that genius actually visits you as an idea. And it's your job to either birth it or let it go so someone else creates it. So if you've ever had an idea and then you haven't written it or made the video or created the thing, and then someone else makes it and then you're like, why did they make it? I can't believe they wrote my book. I can't believe they made the video that I was thinking about making, or whatever it is. It's because you chose not to let that genius come through you. So the challenge that I have for all of your students and anyone else that's watching is to listen, get quiet enough, put away social media, be fully present, write, do your morning pages where you write 3 pages without stopping, get quiet enough, meditate, whatever you need to do, play, to allow that inner genius, that inner child to start speaking to you. And then when it arrives, when that idea arrives, create it, do it, and see what happens. I'm almost positive you're going to have such a much more fulfilling life if you lead that way.
Amen. The same. So do you do a journaling? I'm curious. Do you do journaling?
I do morning pages, and if I have like a video idea or something like that, I create it on the spot, because I know if I don't create it within like 2 or 3 days, it's gone. It's moved on. And then I can't get it back. So yeah.
I love it. Yeah, I love doing journaling, and I also definitely create content on the spot. So we don't have much time left. I really want to ask you this, Jeff. So I watched a few interviews that you did. In one interview, you mentioned you guys were doing a training for a group of professionals.
Yeah.
So, and then you'll notice that people were like crying, like tears, and giving each other a high five and becoming alive again. And it is so different from many of the meetings, the trainings that I have been through.
Right.
Everyone's falling asleep.
Right.
So share with us, what did you guys do to evoke that much emotion, to help people become alive?
So the workshop that Gary Ware, my colleague, and I ran, we ran this at Inbound, and then we also ran this in Australia. And I'm not going to swear, but I'm going to this is the title of the workshop. It was at Inbound. It was called Dealing with A-Holes at Work Through Play. That was the workshop. And talk about play. Us even submitting that title to conferences, I never thought we'd even get a yes. And then all of a sudden, Gary contacted me one day, and he was like, "They said yes. Inbound said yes." And I was like, what's an Inbound? And he's like, "It's the largest marketing conference in the world." And I was like, oh my gosh.
That's where we met. Yes.
Oh my goodness. But yes, so the workshop was about how to deal with toxic people. How do you deal with that colleague that is super mean to you? How do you deal with that boss that does not care about your feelings? How do you have that hard conversation? How do you challenge that power structure, that person that puts themselves before everyone else, that brilliant jerk that brings in a lot of money but insults everyone while they're there? And simply people sharing their stories about how they have been treated, how they've left jobs because of a toxic person, because of an a-hole, how they've felt unworthy of the job they have because of this person, and how because this person is saying these things to them, their inner critic starts to come out. That's another workshop I do. Like, their inner critic starts to come out and starts eating away at them. As they were sharing those stories with each other, people started crying. Because they were like, I thought I was alone. Just like in high school, when you're looking for that belonging, it's just like, you didn't realize, you thought you were the thing. You thought something was wrong with you, when clearly it was something is wrong with the system. Something is wrong with the company. Something is wrong with how we're schooling. And instead you're like, am I the crazy one? Oh my gosh, I'm not the crazy one. This system is crazy. The way we've set this up, even how we're doing the economy now and people are being shoved back to go to work, it's just crazy and madness because it's not putting people first. And for them to be able to share like that and belong and then laugh about it, and then us running this play workshop where we had them actually have the hard conversation with the person. We mimicked it. We practiced it over and over again so that they had the bravery to then not only do it in that workshop, but then go out and challenge that person, challenge that toxic person, challenge that power structure, and be like, enough of this. I don't deserve this. My colleagues don't deserve this. And we are better than this. And if in order for our organization to grow, we either need to have you check yourself as the a-hole, or you need to leave because the company is done if you stay. And I was like, let's go.
Well, I saw a few footage, and I was like, wow, it's so powerful. You can see pure joy on people's face. And again, going back to school, I feel like throughout our lives in a human being, actually Maslow's hierarchy of needs has been revised. So right now, the most basic one is not physical needs. It's actually human connection, that bond. And I was like, wow, that is something that we all need. And then being vulnerable, and we really were so hungry for that sense of belonging. And I was like, oh, such a powerful story and example. Yeah.
If you think of most phenomenal workshops or any talks that really speak to you, they're about belonging, connection, and love. That's really what they're about. That's almost any movie that you watch that you love is about belonging, connection, and love. So it's just like, how are you showing up today? And the challenge that I ask your audience, especially your students, to do, and this is something that I've even challenging a lot of my friends who are trying to figure out what to do next with their life. If they don't know and they feel like no inner genius or no inner voice is coming to them, I challenge them to ask these two questions. Of not themselves, but they're going to ask their closest friends these two questions. And these are, I recommend friends from different realms. So like maybe family, maybe schooling, maybe work, whatever it is. But get as many opinions as possible. You can even put this on social media. But the two questions I would ask them is, ask your friends, what value do I bring to your life? Like, how do I help you in your life? What is it that I give you in your life? What is the value that I bring to your life? So that's the first question. And then the second question I would ask them is, when have you seen me most alive? And what I mean by that is, when have you seen me most present? When have you seen me having the most fun? When have you seen me just like in a pure joyful state? And just take in as many answers as possible. And that will map out so much of who you are and how you show up in the world and what you potentially want to do in life. And you can do that simply by asking your friends to help you reflect back on who you are.
Wow, what a great way to end the show. I love those two powerful questions. I think I'm going to do this myself. And I did something similar when I was trying to understand my personal brand, but definitely for everyone, the students and the live audience, and definitely give this a try. Yeah, great discussion, great idea. Yeah, exactly. I love this. Sister spouse was a-hole. I love that term. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then if people want to get in touch with me, they can go to rediscoveryourplay.com. They can also find me on LinkedIn.
So here is Jeff's LinkedIn. I also have, let me share his website. Yeah, please. And so check out their website. Lots of great, amazing content. And you see everyone loves you, like really, really amazing. I'm having so much fun interviewing you. So This is great. Yeah.
And I'll put this out there for any students that are trying, like Ashley, any students who are trying to figure out, what's next, how do I challenge this system? Reach out to me. I'm happy to do a quick call with you as we try to overthrow this status quo system and flip these tables. Let's go.
I love that. Like I have my mark here. The best education happens outside the classroom. So definitely, let's do it. Yes. Anyway, what a great interview. So just a quick announcement for next week. And I actually have an amazing student now here. I have too many windows here. Now here, Zofia. Yes. So Zofia is an immigrant and came to the US when she was really young. She's a high schooler right now, but she has been running her business for quite a few years. She has her nonprofit and some other businesses. And I'm really excited to have her on the show next week and to share her story and what inspired her to make a difference in the globe. So she has a global audience. So really cool and to have her on the show next week.
Awesome.
Yeah. You see, like children, they can accomplish so much, but going through the traditional system, they become so boxed. They think that I can only do this at this age. Oh my God, yeah. But anyway,
flip the system.
I wish I could just like
flip this table.
But I
have sweaty armpits. Now flip them.
But I have my microphone very expensive. But anyway, what a great conversation, Jeff. I just love you even more. Thank you so much for dropping so much value. And definitely check out his website. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us live on a Friday, or for some of you on a Saturday. So I really appreciate you guys. And stay safe, be well. See you next Friday. Same time, same location. Bye.
See ya.
See ya. You are so